The blazing Arizona sun cast long shadows across the dusty valley as Emma Carson clutched her worn guitar case, staring up at the imposing figure before her. 6'4" of solid muscle and stoic dignity, the Apache warrior's face remained expressionless, yet his dark eyes burned with an intensity that made her breath catch. "You're here only to sing my children to sleep," he stated flatly. "Nothing more." His deep voice carried the weight of unspoken pain, of boundaries firmly drawn. What neither could foresee was how the simple melodies she brought would slowly dissolve the walls he'd spent years building. Could music truly heal what words could not? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Emma folded the faded newspaper advertisement and tucked it into her dress pocket. 3 weeks of dusty travel had brought her to this moment. Standing at the edge of the Apache reservation with nothing but her guitar, a small trunk of possessions, and the promise of work. At 32, the lines at the corners of her eyes told stories of both laughter and sorrow. Her auburn hair streaked with early silver that she wore as badges of experience rather than signs of age. 8 years a widow, Emma had transformed grief into purpose, carrying her late husband's memory across the Western Territories through song. A female singer with gentle voice needed for family engagement. The advertisement had read, vague, but promising enough for a woman who measured wealth in new horizons rather than dollars. The reservation sprawled before her, a collection of traditional dwellings interspersed with more permanent structures, evidence of a people adapting to changing times while honoring their heritage. Children played in the distance, their laughter carrying on the warm breeze. Women worked at outdoor tasks, their movements practiced and efficient. And men stood guard, their postures alert even in apparent relaxation. "Miss Carson." The voice behind her was deep, authoritative. Emma turned, confronting the impressive figure she would soon learn was Dakota, her employer. His height alone would command attention, but it was the quiet intensity of his gaze that held her still. Dark eyes assessed her with neither warmth nor hostility, simply evaluation. "You've arrived." Not a welcome, merely an acknowledgement. "Yes," Emma replied, extending her hand in greeting. "Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Dakota." He did not take her offered hand. "Just Dakota. Among my people, I am called Many Horses." He gestured toward her guitar case. "You have brought your instrument. Good. The children are waiting." Emma lowered her hand, adjusting to his direct manner. "I'm eager to meet them. The advertisement didn't specify much about what you're looking for." "Music. Nothing more." He lifted her trunk with effortless strength. "This way." Following Dakota through the community, Emma noted the curious glances from residents. Some nodded respectfully to Dakota, others regarded her with undisguised suspicion. A white woman on tribal lands was still uncommon enough to draw attention. "You will stay here." Dakota stopped before a small but well-maintained cabin at the settlement's edge. It belonged to our former teacher who returned east. Basic, but private. The cabin was indeed simple. One room with a bed, table, 2 chairs, and a small stove. A wash basin sat in the corner, and a single window looked out toward the mountains. "It's more than adequate," Emma said, meaning it. She'd slept in far worse places during her years of traveling. Dakota set down her trunk. "I have 3 children. Kiona is 9, Ahote is 7, and Tallulah is 4. Their mother passed 2 winters ago." He delivered this information with practiced detachment, but Emma caught the subtle tightening around his eyes. "I'm sorry for your loss," she offered quietly. "They need music in their lives." He continued as though she hadn't spoken. "I will come for you at sundown. You will join us for the evening meal, then sing until they sleep. You may explore the reservation, but respect our ways. Some areas are not for outsiders, they will be marked. Honor these boundaries." "Of course," Emma nodded. "I understand boundaries, Dakota." Something flickered in his expression. Perhaps surprise at her directness, or recognition of something familiar in her tone. Whatever it was passed quickly, replaced by his stoic mask. "Sundown," he repeated, then turned and walked away, his long strides carrying him swiftly from her doorway. Emma watched him go, then turned to survey her new home. She placed her guitar carefully on the bed and opened the trunk, extracting a framed photograph of a smiling young man in a formal suit. John Carson, 5 years before influenza took him. She placed it on the small table, then unpacked her few belongings. Outside, the reservation continued its daily rhythm, indifferent to her arrival. Yet as Emma organized her music sheets, she couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had begun. Something beyond a simple arrangement of songs for sleepy children, as promised. Dakota appeared at Emma's door precisely at sundown. He wore the same impassive expression, but had changed into a clean shirt. Around his neck hung a small beaded medicine pouch, its intricate patterns catching the last golden rays of daylight. "Come," he said simply. Emma followed him through the settlement to a sturdy log home larger than many others. Inside, the main room was warmed by a central fire, the space neat but lived in. 3 children looked up as they entered, studying Emma with expressions ranging from open curiosity to guarded suspicion. "Children, this is Miss Carson. She will sing for you." Dakota's introduction was as economical as everything else about him. Emma smiled, setting her guitar case down gently. "You can call me Emma, if you'd like." The oldest child, a girl with intelligent eyes and her father's strong features, straightened her posture. "I am Kiona. This is Ahot." She indicated her brother, who scowled and looked away. "And that is Tallulah." The youngest, half hidden behind a wooden toy horse, peered at Emma with enormous dark eyes. "I'm honored to meet you all," Emma said, kneeling to be at their level rather than towering over them. Dakota moved to a cooking area. "We eat first." The meal was simple but satisfying, a stew of rabbit and wild roots, with flatbread and dried berries. Conversation was minimal, consisting mostly of Dakota asking his children about their day. Emma respected the silence, understanding it wasn't hers to fill. She noticed how the warrior's hands, capable of such strength, served his youngest daughter with surprising gentleness. After the meal, Dakota nodded toward Emma's guitar. "Now you will sing." Emma opened her case, revealing the instrument that had been her faithful companion for over a decade. As she tuned it, she noticed Dakota touch his medicine pouch briefly, an unconscious gesture that seemed almost protective. "What would you like to hear?" she asked the children. Before they could answer, Dakota spoke. "Songs that will calm them for sleep. Nothing exciting." Emma nodded, understanding the parameters. She began with a gentle folk song about stars, her voice soft but clear in the small space. Kiona maintained her dignified attentiveness, while Ahot pretended disinterest despite his occasional glances. But it was little Tallulah who surprised her, edging closer with each verse until she sat directly before Emma, transfixed. As Emma transitioned to a second song, a lullaby about ocean waves her mother had taught her, she became aware of Dakota's stillness. From his position in the shadows beyond the fire's direct light, he watched with an intensity that might have been unnerving if Emma hadn't recognized it for what it was: the vigilance of a father assessing a stranger's influence on his children. During her third song, a simple melody about a nightingale, Tallulah's eyes began to droop. When Emma finished, the little girl unexpectedly reached out, touching the guitar strings with wonder. "More," she whispered, the first word she'd spoken since Emma's arrival. Something shifted in the room's atmosphere. Emma glanced up, catching an unguarded moment in Dakota's expression. A flash of emotion quickly concealed. He'd moved his hand to the medicine pouch again, fingers gripping it tightly. "One more," he said, his deep voice rougher than before. "Then bed." Emma chose a gentle tune without words, letting the guitar speak for itself. As she played, Tallulah leaned against her side, small head growing heavy with approaching sleep. Across the room, Dakota's breathing had changed, becoming more measured, deliberate. When the song ended, he rose abruptly. "Enough. Children, prepare for bed." As the children reluctantly obeyed, Emma packed her guitar. When she looked up, she found Dakota studying her with an expression she couldn't read. "You will come again tomorrow," he said. Not a question, not quite a command, something in between. "I'll be here," Emma replied. As Dakota escorted her to the door, his hand went once more to the medicine pouch. In the brief moment before he closed the door, Emma caught sight of something small and pale protruding from it, what looked like a scrap of musical notation. Days on the reservation fell into a rhythm as natural as Emma's music. Mornings began with the calls of meadowlarks and the soft murmur of activity as the community stirred to life. Emma quickly learned that idle hands were unwelcome. Everyone contributed to daily survival. On her third morning, a woman appeared at Emma's door, introducing herself as Nakia, Dakota's younger sister. Where Dakota was all hard angles and stern silence, Nakia possessed a quiet warmth, her eyes crinkling at the corners when she smiled. "My brother expects you to sing, not to understand," Nakia said, handing Emma a basket. "But I think understanding makes the song better, yes? Come, help with the washing." Through Nakia, Emma met other women of the tribe, learning bits of language and custom while working alongside them. They regarded her with cautious curiosity, some more welcoming than others. Emma absorbed their lessons with genuine interest, storing away melodies she overheard, watching how mothers soothed children with songs different from her own. In the afternoons, she often spotted Dakota in his official capacity, conferring with tribal leaders, instructing young men in traditional skills, or meeting with representatives from neighboring communities. He carried a natural authority, his posture straight-backed and proud. One such afternoon, Emma observed him with an elderly man who leaned heavily on an intricately carved walking stick. The tribal elder, Grey Wolf, she later learned, spoke animatedly, while Dakota listened with respectful attention, occasionally nodding or offering brief responses. When Grey Wolf noticed Emma watching, he gestured her over with surprising enthusiasm. "So this is the singing woman," he said in accented but clear English. "Dakota says your voice pleases the children." "I hope so," Emma replied, aware of Dakota's guarded expression. Grey Wolf tapped his walking stick against the ground. "Music is medicine. Old ways, new songs, all have power." Dakota shifted uncomfortably. "Emma Carson is here for the children only, elder." "Yes, yes," Grey Wolf nodded, eyes twinkling. "For the children, of course." He tapped his stick again and walked away, leaving an awkward silence. "Grey Wolf speaks in riddles sometimes," Dakota finally said. "Do not trouble yourself with his meanings." Their evening routine solidified. Emma would arrive at sundown, share the family meal, then sing until the children grew sleepy. With each passing night, subtle changes emerged. Ahot's scowl softened into occasional shy smiles. Kiona began requesting specific songs, even offering to teach Emma traditional Apache lullabies. And little Tallulah blossomed, often climbing into Emma's lap during gentler melodies. Dakota remained harder to read. He stayed present during these sessions, unlike many fathers who might leave childcare to women, but maintained his position in the shadows. Sometimes Emma would glance up to find his gaze intent upon her, only for him to look away immediately. One evening, seeking fresh water for Tallulah, Emma accidentally entered a room she hadn't seen before. Moonlight through an open window illuminated a space that was clearly preserved rather than lived in. A woman's shawl draped over a chair, moccasins placed neatly beside it, dried flowers in a clay pot. The air felt thick with memory. "This room is not for you." Emma turned, startled by Dakota's voice. He stood in the doorway, his silhouette rigid with tension. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "Tallulah wanted water. That door remains closed." His tone left no room for explanation. "I understand," Emma said softly. "I lost someone too, Dakota." The silence between them hummed with shared recognition, an invisible thread of common experience. "Your water," he finally said, handing her a small clay cup. His fingers brushed hers in the exchange, both of them drawing back as if from unexpected heat. That night, Emma chose songs of healing, subtle, without explicit references to loss. As Tallulah drifted to sleep against her father's chest, Emma caught Dakota's gaze and held it for the first time. No words passed between them, but something shifted. A minute adjustment in the careful distance he maintained 2 weeks into her stay. Emma decided to organize her growing collection of music. Between her own sheets and those Kiona had helped her transcribe from Apache songs, her leather portfolio bulged with disorganized pages. Seated cross-legged on the cabin floor, she sorted the music into neat piles. Children's songs, lullabies, folk tunes, and the Apache melodies she was learning. As she worked, a folded yellowing page slipped from between two others. Emma didn't recognize it immediately. Unfolding it carefully, she discovered an unfinished piece of sheet music, the notation written in a flowing feminine hand unlike her own more practical script. The title read "Moonlight on Mountains," with Spanish words penciled beneath the first few measures. The melody was hauntingly beautiful, even incomplete. Emma hummed it softly, fingers instinctively finding the notes on an imaginary keyboard. There was something familiar about it, echoes of an Apache song Kiona had taught her, but with elements of classical Spanish composition. That evening, without thinking deeply about it, Emma brought the unfinished sheet with her. After the usual songs, as the children were growing drowsy, she spoke quietly. "I found this piece today. It's unfinished, but quite beautiful. Would you like to hear what exists of it?" She began to play without waiting for a response, her fingers finding the delicate melody. The notes hung in the air like suspended time, wistful, yearning, unresolved. A sharp intake of breath from across the room broke her concentration. Dakota stood rigid, his face drained of color. In 3 long strides, he crossed to Emma and snatched the sheet music from her hands. "Where did you get this?" His voice was low, dangerous. Emma blinked, startled by the intensity of his reaction. "It was mixed in with my music. I don't know how." "Lies." The word cut like a knife. Kiona was suddenly beside them, her small hand touching her father's arm. "Father, perhaps when Emma helped me write down the songs. Take your brother and sister to bed." Dakota's tone brooked no argument. When the children had reluctantly left, Dakota held up the sheet music, his hand trembling slightly. "This was my wife's composition. Her last. How dare you take it?" Understanding dawned on Emma. "Dakota, I didn't take anything. I found it mixed with my papers after Kiona and I worked together. I had no idea." "Maria was half Mexican," he interrupted, his voice raw with emotion. "Her grandmother taught her European music. She combined it with our tribal melodies." His fingers traced the handwriting as one might touch a beloved face. This was her gift. The revelation stunned Emma. "I'm truly sorry for playing it without permission. The melody was so beautiful. She never finished it." Dakota's shoulders sagged slightly. The fever took her before she could. The vulnerability in his admission hung between them, fragile and unexpected. Emma remained silent, understanding that any response might shatter this rare moment of openness. Dakota folded the paper carefully, tucking it into his medicine pouch, the mystery of its contents now clear. "She would sing to the children every night," he said after a long pause. "After she was gone, the silence was." He trailed off, unable or unwilling to complete the thought. "That's why you sought a singer," Emma realized aloud. Dakota looked at her directly, his dark eyes holding hers. Music was her domain. Words are insufficient for some pains. Emma nodded, understanding completely. "John, my husband, played violin. After he died, I couldn't bear to hear it for almost a year." Something shifted in Dakota's expression, recognition, perhaps. For a breath, they were not employer and employee, not Apache and white woman, but simply two people who understood loss intimately. "Your songs are good for the children," he finally said, the closest he had come to a compliment. "But this," he touched the medicine pouch, "is private." "I understand," Emma said softly. "Thank you for telling me about her." Dakota nodded once, then turned away. But as Emma gathered her guitar to leave, she noticed he didn't immediately retreat to the shadows as usual. Instead, he lingered in the doorway, watching her with an expression that, for the first time, held something other than guarded neutrality. The incident with Maria's music altered something fundamental between Emma and the community. Word spread, as it inevitably did in close-knit societies, that the white singer had somehow connected to the spirit of Takoda's late wife through song. Some regarded this with suspicion, others with newfound respect. Emma began recording Apache songs and stories in a leather-bound journal Nakia had gifted her. "Our stories live in our voices," Nakia explained. "But your people need black marks on paper to remember." Emma smiled at the gentle teasing. "True enough. But these black marks might help me carry your songs correctly." Days stretched into weeks, and Emma found herself increasingly drawn into tribal life. She joined the women grinding corn and preparing meals, fumbling at first but improving with patient guidance. Her pale hands grew calloused alongside the brown ones of her teachers, who corrected her technique with good-natured laughter. The children became her most enthusiastic cultural guides. Kiona taught her proper pronunciations of Apache words with the serious dedication of a born instructor. Ahot, his initial suspicion fading, proudly demonstrated how to identify animal tracks and which berries were safe to eat. Little Tallulah simply inserted her small hand into Emma's at every opportunity, chattering in a mix of English and Apache that Emma gradually learned to decipher. One afternoon, Kiona found Emma transcribing a lullaby into her journal. "That song is for the coming-of-age ceremony," she corrected. "Not for sleeping." "Oh." Emma quickly adjusted her notes. "Thank you. I want to get it right." Kiona studied the notation curiously. "Those marks tell you how to sing?" "They do." Emma pointed to different symbols. "This shows how high or low the note is, and these tell me how long to hold it." Kiona's eyes widened. "Like tracking marks, but for voice?" "Exactly like that," Emma replied, impressed by the child's insight. That evening, when Emma arrived for her usual performance, she found Takoda teaching his children to repair fishing nets on the porch. He acknowledged her with a nod that contained less reservation than previous greetings. "Father says you've been learning our ways," Kiona announced proudly. "Trying to," Emma corrected with a self-deprecating smile. "I'm not very good yet." "Yet," Takoda repeated, the hint of approval in his voice warming Emma more than it should have. After dinner, instead of immediately reaching for her guitar, Emma asked, "Would it be appropriate for me to share something I've been working on?" At Takoda's cautious nod, she opened her journal and began singing one of the tribal songs Kiona had taught her. She'd practiced the unfamiliar syllables diligently, trying to honor the proper rhythms and inflections. When she finished, silence filled the room. Even Tallulah seemed to understand the significance of the moment. "Your accent needs work," Takoda finally said, but the criticism lacked its usual edge. "The respect is there," came a voice from the doorway. Gray Wolf stood leaning on his carved walking stick, his weathered face creased in a smile. "That counts for more than perfect sounds." The elder joined them, settling near the fire with a groan of aging joints. "Tomorrow is the blessing ceremony for the summer hunts. The singer should attend." Emma glanced at Takoda, expecting objection. Instead, he studied her thoughtfully before giving a single nod. "If she wishes," he said. "I'd be honored," Emma replied sincerely. Later, as Emma packed her guitar to leave, Gray Wolf touched her arm with gnarled fingers. "You heal with your songs," he said quietly. "Not just the children." Emma shook her head. "I only sing what I know." The elder's eyes crinkled. "Knowledge comes in many forms. Some here see only your pale skin. Others begin to see your heart." He glanced meaningfully toward Takoda, who was settling the children for bed. As if sensing their attention, Takoda looked up, his dark eyes meeting Emma's across the room. For once, he didn't immediately look away. The moment stretched between them, uninterrupted by words or movement, a silent acknowledgement of something neither was ready to name. Gray Wolf chuckled softly. "Music opens doors long closed," he murmured, tapping his walking stick against the floor. "Even doors we thought would never open again." The blessing ceremony welcomed Emma in ways she hadn't expected. While some elders maintained their distance, Most tribal members acknowledged her presence with nods or small gestures of inclusion. Emma observed with respectful attention, absorbing the rhythms of the prayers and songs, recognizing musical patterns that transcended language barriers. Afterward, as families dispersed to prepare for the evening meal, Emma noticed a cluster of men in serious conversation. Dakota stood among them, his posture tense. When they separated, his expression was grim. "What's happened?" Emma asked when he approached. Dakota hesitated, then gestured for her to walk with him away from curious ears. "Government officials are coming. Indian Affairs representatives." The way he said it, flat, controlled, told Emma volumes about past experiences. "When?" 2 weeks. They claim it's a routine inspection." His jaw tightened. "There are no routine inspections." Emma had heard enough stories from other tribes to understand his concern. Government visits often preceded new restrictions, land reductions, or attempts to remove children for education in distant schools. "What will you do?" Dakota removed a small brass telescope from his belt, clearly of military origin. He extended it, scanning the distant horizon as if enemies might already be approaching. "I will do what I have always done. Protect my people." He collapsed the telescope with a sharp snap. "I serve as negotiator between our tribe and the white government. I speak their language, understand their ways." Emma hadn't known this aspect of Dakota's role. "That's why your English is so fluent." "I learned it in the army. I served as a scout for 5 years." His voice carried no pride in this, merely fact. "I learned how white men think, how they make war, how they make peace." He tucked the telescope away. "Neither comes without cost." They walked in silence until reaching a small rise overlooking the settlement. Below, children played, women worked, men prepared for the hunt. Ordinary life continuing despite the shadow of coming troubles. "Your presence complicates matters," Dakota finally said. Emma frowned. "How so?" "A white woman living among us raises questions. They will wonder why you're here, what you represent." "I'm just a singer," Emma said. Dakota's slight smile held no humor. "There are no just anything when it comes to relations between our peoples." Emma considered this. "Would it be better if I left before they arrive?" The question hung between them. Dakota studied her face as if searching for something. "No," he finally said. "Running creates suspicion. Better to face them directly." He paused. "But you should understand your position. What you say, how you present yourself, it affects all of us." The responsibility settled on Emma's shoulders. "I understand. What would be most helpful?" Dakota seemed surprised by her question, perhaps expecting resistance rather than alliance. "The officials respect cultural displays," he said after consideration. "They report back on how civilized we are becoming, yet simultaneously want to see controlled demonstrations of our native ways." The bitterness in his tone was understated but unmistakable. "A performance," Emma suggested. "The children could sing both traditional songs and some they've learned from me. Show cultural exchange rather than replacement." Dakota considered this. "Perhaps. The children are innocent ambassadors. I could help prepare them," Emma offered. "Make it something special." Something softened in Dakota's expression. "You would do this?" "Of course," Emma replied without hesitation. "This is my home too, for now at least." Her words seemed to surprise them both. Emma hadn't thought of any place as home since John died, yet somehow this community had begun to feel like one. Dakota looked away, but not before Emma caught something unreadable in his eyes. "Very well. We will prepare the children together." As they walked back toward the settlement, a new awareness hummed between them, partners now in something beyond children's bedtime songs. Near his home, Dakota paused. "Emma." He rarely used her first name, the sound of it in his deep voice sending an unexpected warmth through her. "Thank you." 2 simple words, yet the sincerity behind them meant more than elaborate praise from another man might have. Emma simply nodded, understanding that for Dakota, gratitude didn't come easily, which made it all the more valuable when offered. Preparing for the government visit transformed Emma's role in the community. What began as evening songs for 3 children expanded to daily practices with a dozen young tribal members. They gathered in the community building, a former mission structure repurposed by the tribe, where Emma discovered an old upright piano, surprisingly well-maintained. Despite their argument about her involvement, Dakota came to observe the rehearsals, leaning against the back wall with arms crossed. His expression remained neutral, but Emma noticed he stayed longer each day. "The children are responding well to you," he acknowledged after one particularly successful session. Emma smiled, watching the children practice a movement sequence Kiona had choreographed. "They're teaching me as much as I'm teaching them." "This is good," Dakota said. "The officials respond better when they believe they're seeing something authentic, not something created for their benefit." "Even though that's exactly what we're doing," Emma noted wryly. The hint of a smile touched Dakota's lips. The politics of survival often require such contradictions. The small joke, the first he'd shared with her, felt like a victory. Emma carried the warm memory of it through the afternoon as she continued working with the children. That evening, unable to sleep in the summer heat, Emma took her guitar and walked to a small creek near her cabin. The night was alive with cricket song and the distant howl of coyotes as she settled on a flat rock, playing softly to avoid disturbing anyone. A strange sound interrupted her practice, a haunting melody carried on the night breeze. Following it, Emma discovered Dakota seated alone on a fallen log, playing a hand-carved wooden flute. His eyes were closed, fingers moving with practiced ease over the instrument. Emma hesitated, not wanting to intrude on such a private moment. As she began to retreat, a twig snapped beneath her foot. Dakota's eyes opened, the music stopping abruptly. "Emma, I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I didn't mean to disturb you." He studied her for a moment, then surprised her by shifting slightly on the log, a silent invitation. Emma sat, leaving appropriate space between them. "I didn't know you played." "I haven't. Not for a long time." Dakota turned the flute in his hands, its surface polished by years of use. "It was a childhood instrument." "It's beautiful," Emma said. "Both the flute and how you play it." Dakota's fingers traced the simple designs carved into the wood. "My father made this when I was 10. He said music speaks when words fail." "Wise man," Emma replied softly. "Yes." Dakota looked up at the star-filled sky. "He would have approved of what you're doing with the children." The compliment, so unexpected, left Emma momentarily speechless. "Thank you," she finally managed. They sat in companionable silence, the night sounds weaving around them. Without discussion, Emma began playing her guitar softly, finding a melody that complemented the one Dakota had been playing. After listening for a moment, he raised his flute and joined her. Their impromptu duet filled the night air, his notes weaving through her chords, neither dominating but enhancing each other. When the song ended naturally, the silence felt peaceful rather than empty. "Music bridges many gaps," Dakota said quietly. Emma nodded, understanding he meant more than just musical styles. Their moment of connection was interrupted by a distressed call from the direction of Dakota's home. "Father!" They both rose immediately. Dakota reached his house first, Emma close behind. Inside, they found a Hote holding a feverish Tallulah, her small face flushed with heat. "She woke crying," Kiona explained, fear in her young voice. Dakota placed a gentle hand on his daughter's forehead, his worried eyes meeting Emma's over the child's head. "Summer fever," he said grimly. "It comes quickly." Emma immediately set down her guitar. "I'll fetch water and cloths. We need to cool her down." Through the night, they worked together tending to the sick child. When Tallulah finally fell into peaceful sleep near dawn, Emma realized Dakota had taken her hand during a particularly worrying moment and hadn't let go. As morning light filtered through the window, Dakota gently lifted his sleeping daughter and carried her to her bed. When he returned, exhaustion evident in his face, he looked at Emma with new eyes. "Thank you," he said simply, "for staying." In those few words, Emma heard a shift, trust where there had been only cautious acceptance before. A month passed since Emma's arrival, summer heat intensifying as August approached. Tallulah recovered fully from her fever, trailing Emma like a devoted shadow whenever possible. The approaching government visit lent urgency to daily life, yet paradoxically strengthened bonds within the community as they prepared together. Emma was sorting donated clothing for the children's performance when Nakia appeared carrying a large, flat-woven basket decorated with traditional patterns. "Look what I found while cleaning the storage lodge," she said, setting the basket before Emma. "It is a wedding basket, very old. My grandmother made it." Emma admired the intricate design. "It's beautiful. The craftsmanship is remarkable." "Yes." Nakia ran her fingers along the pattern. "When a man gives this to a woman's family, it shows he can provide." The path from the center represents their journey together. Her eyes held a mischievous glint. "Perhaps someone will need it soon." Emma laughed, shaking her head. "I don't think so." "No?" Nakia raised an eyebrow. "My brother watches you when he thinks no one sees." Heat rushed to Emma's cheeks. "Dakota is my employer. Nothing more." Nakia's smile was knowing. "A month ago he spoke your name like a duty. Now there is a different sound." Before Emma could formulate a response, Kiona rushed in, excited about a new dance step she'd created. The moment passed, but Nakia's words lingered in Emma's thoughts. That evening, she arrived at Dakota's home to find him teaching the children to make arrows. Even little Tallulah carefully wrapping sinew around a small shaft under her father's patient guidance. The domestic scene struck Emma with unexpected force. This fierce warrior, gentling his strength to guide tiny fingers. He looked up as she entered, and something in his gaze, a warmth that hadn't been there initially, made her heart quicken. "We waited dinner," he said simply. The meal felt different somehow. The children chattered more freely. Dakota contributed occasional comments rather than maintaining his usual silence. And Emma found herself sharing stories of her travels that she hadn't thought to tell before. She realized with a start like family. After the children were asleep, Emma and Dakota sat on the porch, discussing final preparations for the official's visit. The conversation flowed more easily than it once had, professional concerns giving way to occasional personal observations. During a comfortable lull, Dakota spoke unexpectedly. "You have been here 1 month today." Emma looked at him, surprised he'd noted the date. "Yes, I suppose it is. Longer than I expected you to stay." His tone was neutral, but his eyes asked a question. "Longer than I expected to stay," Emma admitted. "But I'm glad I have." Dakota nodded slowly. "The children have grown attached." "And I to them," Emma said softly. The unspoken hung between them. "And to you? And to me?" A shooting star traced across the night sky, drawing both their gazes upward. "My people believe those are spirits traveling between worlds," Dakota said. "My mother called them God's lanterns," Emma replied. "Different words for the same beauty." Dakota considered this. "Yes, like music." The simple comparison held deeper meaning, acknowledgement of the bridge they'd been building between their different worlds. The next morning, Emma encountered Grey Wolf near the communal garden. The elder studied her with keen eyes. "You bloom here," he observed, "like desert flowers after rain." Emma smiled. "The soil is good." Grey Wolf chuckled, leaning on his walking stick. "And the gardener? Is he also good?" Emma felt her cheeks warm. "Elder." "I am old, not blind," Grey Wolf said gently. "Dakota's heart has been winter since Maria left this world. Now I see spring thaw." He tapped his stick against the ground. "Life is too short for fear, Singer." "It's not fear," Emma protested. "It's proper boundaries." Grey Wolf's laugh was surprisingly youthful. "Boundaries? Yes, like river banks. They define the river but cannot stop its flow." He shuffled away, leaving Emma to ponder his words as she watched Dakota in the distance, instructing young men in bow hunting techniques. His strong profile against the morning sun made her heart tighten with an emotion she wasn't ready to name. Proper boundaries indeed, she thought, turning away before he could catch her watching. But like the river Grey Wolf described, Something was flowing between them that seemed increasingly difficult to contain. 3 days before the government officials' scheduled arrival, the community center buzzed with activity. Children practiced their performances while adults prepared traditional crafts and food demonstrations. A carefully orchestrated display of tribal life designed to present the proper image to authorities. Emma sat at the old piano, working with Kiona on a song that blended traditional melodies with Western harmonies. The girl's quick mind grasped musical concepts with remarkable ease. "Miss Emma," Kiona asked during a break, "what do you call someone who is not mother but acts like mother?" The question caught Emma off guard. "Well, sometimes guardian or caretaker. Or, no." Kiona shook her head firmly. "In your heart. What are they in your heart?" Emma considered carefully. "I suppose it depends on the relationship. Sometimes aunt or Shima Yaji," Tallulah interrupted, appearing suddenly beside the piano bench. "That's what we call you." She pronounced the Apache words with childish precision, looking to her sister for approval. Kiona nodded. "It means little mother, because you are not trying to replace our mother, but you care for us in a mother way." Emma blinked against unexpected tears. "I'm honored," she managed. "Truly." The tender moment was interrupted as Dakota entered the community center. He nodded acknowledgement to Emma before speaking to the assembled children in Apache, his deep voice carrying naturally through the space. Afterward, as the children dispersed for midday meal, Emma approached him. "Your speech inspired them. They need to understand the importance of the performance." His voice was serious, but lacked the hardness it once held when addressing her. "What happens here affects our future. The children told me something today," Emma said. "They've been calling me Shima Yaji." Dakota's expression shifted subtly. "I know. You're not upset?" He studied her face. "Should I be? I would never presume to replace their mother," Emma said earnestly. "They know this." Dakota's gaze held hers. "So do I." Something unspoken passed between them, a current of understanding that needed no words. Dakota reached into his shirt pocket, withdrawing a small object. "I have been meaning to show you these." He handed her 2 tarnished silver medals on faded ribbons. "From my time as Army Scout." Emma examined them carefully. "You served with distinction." "I served with divided heart," he corrected. "Helping soldiers who sometimes fought my own people." His expression grew distant. "It taught me to live in 2 worlds, a lesson that has served our tribe, even if the path was difficult." "Is that how you met Maria?" Emma asked gently. Dakota nodded. "Her father was Mexican, her mother Apache. She cooked at the fort." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "She would sing while working. I heard her before I saw her." The parallel to his first awareness of Emma hung unspoken between them. "She understood the divided heart," he continued, "being of 2 worlds herself." Emma returned the medals carefully. "Thank you for sharing this with me." Dakota nodded once, then gestured toward the piano. "Show me what you and Kiona have prepared." Emma sat at the instrument, fingers poised over the keys. "It's still rough." "Show me," he repeated softer. She began to play, explaining the structure as she went. "Here, the traditional melody carries, but underneath, these harmonies support it without changing its essential character." Dakota listened intently. "Like your presence here," he observed, "supporting without changing what is essential." The insight surprised her. "I hadn't thought of it that way. May I?" He gestured toward the piano. Emma shifted, making room beside her on the bench. Dakota sat, their shoulders nearly touching in the confined space. The proximity sent a flutter through her chest that had nothing to do with music. "Maria taught me a little," he explained, positioning his large hands awkwardly on the keys. "I am not skilled." "Here," Emma said without thinking, placing her hand over his to guide his fingers to the correct position. The moment her skin touched his, an almost electric awareness passed between them. Dakota didn't pull away. "Show me," he said again, his voice lower than before. Emma guided his right hand through a simple melody, hyper-aware of his nearness, the warmth of his skin, the way his breath seemed to synchronize with hers. "Like this?" he asked, attempting the pattern again. "Yes, exactly like that," she replied, looking up to find his face much closer than she'd realized. For one breathless moment, neither moved. Then Tallulah's voice called from the doorway, breaking the spell. "Father, Elder Grey Wolf is asking for you." Dakota stood, composure returning. But as he turned to leave, his fingers brushed Emma's shoulder in a touch too deliberate to be accidental. The government officials arrived a day early, sending the community into controlled chaos. 3 men in stiff suits emerged from a dusty automobile late in the afternoon, accompanied by an army lieutenant whose posture suggested reluctant escort duty rather than active involvement. Dakota greeted them with dignified formality, his public persona markedly different from the man Emma had come to know. Standing slightly behind him with the tribal council members, she observed the subtle dynamics, the condescending smile of the oldest official, the impatient fidgeting of the youngest, the careful neutrality of the lieutenant. "Mr. Many Horses," the senior official said, butchering the pronunciation of Dakota's tribal name. "We've come to discuss the revised land assessment." Emma noticed Dakota's back stiffen slightly. "Our understanding was this visit concerned general reservation conditions. Nothing was mentioned about land assessments." The official extracted a folded document from his briefcase. "This deed clarification indicates the northern boundary extends only to Copper Creek, not Willow Creek as previously recorded." The implications were immediately clear to everyone present. The disputed area contained the tribe's best hunting grounds and several sacred sites. "That land has been part of our territory since the Treaty of 1873, Dakota replied evenly. "The boundary is clearly marked in that agreement. Newer surveys suggest a mapping error in the original document." The official's tone suggested the matter was already settled. "But we can discuss this tomorrow after we've conducted our inspection." The visitors were escorted to the guest quarters, a small cabin similar to Emma's, maintained for such official visits. As the community dispersed to continue preparations, Emma followed Dakota to the council lodge where tribal leaders gathered in urgent discussion. Grey Wolf's face was grim. "They come with thieves' intentions, dressed in law's clothing." Dakota unrolled a large map, weighing the corners with stones. "They seek to take this entire section." His finger traced the disputed area. "Nearly 1/5 of our hunting grounds." Emma studied the map, recognizing the creek names from her explorations with the children. "That's much more than a mapping error." Dakota glanced at her, then addressed the other leaders. "We will need all documents from previous treaties. Every paper, every signed agreement." As the meeting continued in Apache, Emma slipped away, understanding this was tribal business requiring privacy. She returned to the community center to make final adjustments to the children's performance, hoping it might somehow help the tribe's case by demonstrating cultural continuity and connection to the land. Later that evening, as Emma practiced alone at the piano, she heard raised voices outside. Through the window, she glimpsed Dakota in tense conversation with the youngest official, their body language suggesting significant disagreement. When Dakota entered the community center minutes later, his expression was thunderous. "Problems?" Emma asked cautiously. "They've already surveyed without our knowledge or consent," he replied, pacing like a caged animal. "They bring maps already drawn, decisions already made." Emma's heart sank. "What will you do?" "Fight with words and papers, as always." Bitterness edged his voice. "The old ways would have resolved this differently." "There must be legal recourse," Emma suggested. "If the original treaty is clear, legal." Dakota almost spat the word. "Their laws change to suit their purposes. They speak of civilization while behaving like conquerors." Emma approached him carefully. "How can I help?" "This is not your fight," he said, but without his former dismissiveness, more resignation than rejection. "I'm here, aren't I?" Emma countered. "These children, this community, they matter to me." Dakota stilled, studying her face. "Why? You could leave any time, return to your world." The question struck at something fundamental. Why had she stayed? Why did the thought of leaving create an ache in her chest? Because... Emma hesitated, then spoke from her heart. Because I found something here I thought I'd lost forever. What? Dakota asked, his voice lower. Purpose. Connection. She met his gaze steadily. Home. The word hung between them, weighted with significance neither was ready to fully acknowledge. The moment was broken by a commotion outside, voices raised in alarm. They hurried to the door to find several community members gathered around the youngest official, who was making expansive gestures toward the northern boundary. What's happening? Emma asked. Dakota's expression darkened. He's explaining to our people why their sacred grounds now belong to the federal government. Without thinking, Emma stepped forward into the group. Excuse me, sir, but shouldn't such announcements wait for tomorrow's official meeting? The official turned, clearly surprised at her intervention. And who might you be, ma'am? Emma Carson. I work with the community. His eyebrows rose. A white woman? How unexpected. He smiled thinly. Perhaps you could explain to these people the benefits of proper land management under federal oversight. The patronizing tone ignited something protective in Emma. Perhaps you could explain why treaties signed in good faith are being reinterpreted without consultation. A hush fell over the gathered tribe members. The official's face reddened. This is not your concern, Miss Carson. I believe it is, Emma replied firmly. As a citizen and taxpayer whose government makes promises in her name. Dakota stepped forward, placing a restraining hand on Emma's arm. We will discuss all matters tomorrow as planned, he told the official with forced calm. Good evening. His grip tightened as he led Emma away, his anger palpable. Once out of earshot, he released her. That, he said tightly, was a mistake. Emma stormed back to her cabin, anger and hurt warring within her. After all these weeks, after all they'd shared, Dakota still saw her as an outsider who should remain silent. The unfairness stung sharply. Inside her small home, she began gathering her belongings with jerky movements. Perhaps it was time to move on after all. She'd stayed too long, allowed herself to form attachments that clouded her judgment. As she roughly folded a dress, a small silver object tumbled from its pocket. An antique locket she always carried. It had been John's final gift before the influenza took him, containing a small photograph of them on their wedding day. Emma sank onto her bed, the familiar weight of the locket in her palm offering little comfort tonight. She opened it, gazing at the faded image. John's kind eyes, her own younger face alight with hope for their future. A knock interrupted her thoughts. She hastily wiped away tears before opening the door to find Nakia. He sent you to apologize, Emma said flatly. My brother apologizes to no one, Nakia replied, her expression serious. I came because I heard you defend our people. May I enter? Emma stepped aside, embarrassed by the obvious signs of packing. Nakia glanced at the scattered belongings but made no comment. You should not leave like this, she said instead. Dakota made it clear I overstepped, Emma replied, unable to keep the hurt from her voice. He fears for you, Nakia said simply. Government men have power to make trouble for white women who side with Indians. Emma hadn't considered this perspective. He's worried about me? And angry you put yourself at risk, Nakia confirmed. Dakota protects what he values. The implication hung in the air between them. Before Emma could formulate a response, Nakia's gaze fixed on the open locket in Emma's hand. May I see? Emma hesitantly passed her the treasured object. Nakia studied the photograph, her expression shifting from curiosity to shock. This man, your husband? Yes, John Carson. Nakia looked up, eyes wide. You are John Carson's widow? The doctor. Emma stared at her. Yes, but how could you possibly know that? Nakia didn't answer immediately, instead crossing to the door. Come with me. Now. Confused, Emma followed Nakia through the settlement to Grey Wolf's dwelling. The elder sat outside, smoking a pipe in the evening air. He looked up with mild surprise as they approached. Elder, Nakia said urgently in Apache, then switched to English. She is John Carson's widow. Gray Wolf's pipe nearly fell from his mouth. He peered at Emma with new intensity, then gestured for her to sit beside him. The singing woman is Dr. Carson's wife? He asked in clear disbelief. You knew my husband? Emma asked, bewildered. Gray Wolf nodded slowly. 7 winters ago, very bad sickness came to our people. Your husband was army doctor at Fort Whipple. Yes, Emma confirmed. He was stationed there before we married. Many tribes turned away by white doctors, Gray Wolf continued. Your husband came when we asked, stayed 3 weeks, saved many lives, especially children. The elder's weathered hand touched Emma's arm. My grandson among them. Emma's mind reeled. John had mentioned treating Native Americans during his army service, but never specific tribes. I had no idea. He carried this. Gray Wolf reached inside his shirt, producing a small carved wooden figure, a healing totem. Said it reminded him medicine is sacred in all cultures. Emma recognized it instantly. He kept it on his desk until the day he died. Her voice wavered. I always wondered where it came from. Nakia spoke urgently to Gray Wolf in Apache. The elder nodded, then turned to Emma. Tomorrow, when officials come, you have voice now. Not as outsider. As widow of respected friend who helped our people in time of great need. His dark eyes held hers. Will you speak for us? Of course, Emma replied without hesitation. But Dakota, leave my brother to me, Nakia interjected with determination. As they walked back through the settlement, Emma's mind whirled with the implications of this revelation. By some incredible coincidence, or perhaps something more, as Gray Wolf might suggest, her path had led her precisely back to the people her husband had once helped. Outside her cabin, Nakia paused. Now you understand why the advertisement found you? The advertisement? Emma frowned. But that was just chance. Nakia smiled enigmatically. My brother may believe in coincidence. I do not. She touched Emma's locket gently. Some connections are written in the stars long before we recognize them. As Nakia departed, Emma stood motionless in the deepening twilight, the locket warm in her palm, feeling as though unseen threads of destiny had been quietly weaving around her all along. Dawn had barely broken when Dakota appeared at Emma's door, his expression a complex mixture of emotions she couldn't fully decipher. May I enter? He asked, more formal than he'd been with her in weeks. Emma stepped aside silently. Once inside, Dakota stood uncomfortably, clearly struggling with what to say. Nakia told me, he finally managed, about your husband. You didn't know? Emma asked. When you hired me? Dakota shook his head. The advertisement was Gray Wolf's idea. I never connected your name. He paused. Dr. Carson was respected here. He treated our people with dignity when others would not. That sounds like John, Emma said softly. Dakota's gaze dropped to the floor, then rose to meet hers directly. I was wrong yesterday. Your voice belongs in this fight. The admission clearly cost him effort. Dakota was not a man accustomed to acknowledging mistakes. Emma recognized the olive branch for what it was. I understand why you were angry, she offered. You were trying to protect me. Something flickered in his eyes, confirmation, perhaps, of Nakia's insight. He unrolled a large yellow document on Emma's table. This is the original treaty, he explained, moving past the personal moment with obvious relief. And this? He produced an ancient tribal map drawn on stretched hide. Shows our boundaries before any treaties existed. Emma studied both documents with interest. The Creek names are different. Yes, the treaty uses white men's names. Our map uses our names. Dakota traced a line with his finger. This is Shadow Water Creek, what your people call Willow Creek. It has always been our northern boundary. The officials claim the boundary is Copper Creek, Emma recalled, which would take this entire region from us. Dakota indicated a substantial area, including 3 sacred sites and our best hunting grounds. They spent the morning preparing, Dakota explaining the treaty history while Emma took notes. Their previous tension dissolved in the focus of shared purpose. By midday, they had developed a strategy for the afternoon meeting. Your connection to Dr. Carson gives your words weight, Dakota explained. These men respect military service and medical authority, if little else. I'll speak about John's respect for your healing traditions, Emma suggested. How he incorporated some into his own practice. Dakota nodded approval. The Army lieutenant may be sympathetic. His discomfort yesterday was noticeable. Their planning was interrupted by Kiona, who arrived with Tallulah in tow. We brought food, she announced importantly, placing a small basket on the table. Tallulah immediately climbed into Emma's lap, small arms circling her neck. Shima Yaji, will you sing at the big meeting? Emma glanced at Dakota, who seemed untroubled by his daughter's use of the affectionate title. Perhaps. Would that help? Kiona nodded solemnly. Grey Wolf says your voice carries medicine. Your performance with the children remains important, Dakota told Emma. It demonstrates our community strength and cultural continuity. After the children left, their planning continued with a new intensity. Evening approached, and they were still hunched over maps and documents when Nakia arrived. The officials expect formal presentation, she informed them. There will be a ceremonial dance first. Dakota frowned. We didn't plan for this. Grey Wolf insists, Nakia replied. He says proper protocol must be observed. After she departed, Dakota ran a hand through his hair in frustration. The dance requires partners. I had not intended. What? Emma prompted when he fell silent. Traditionally, tribal representatives dance with their... He hesitated. Their wives or intended partners. Oh, understanding dawned on Emma. And you need to dance as tribal representative. Dakota nodded, not meeting her eyes. Normally Nakia would stand in, but she will be leading the women's chorus. I could do it, Emma offered, surprised at her own boldness. If that would help. Dakota finally looked at her, something unreadable in his gaze. You would need to learn the steps. Tonight. Then we should begin, Emma said practically, though her heartbeat quickened at the prospect. The lesson began awkwardly. The dance required partners to stand close, movements synchronized in a pattern that symbolized unity and strength. Dakota's initial instructions were stiff, overly formal. Like this? Emma asked, attempting a turning step. No. Dakota shook his head. You must feel the rhythm, not count it. After a moment's hesitation, he stepped behind her. Allow me. His hands settled lightly on her waist, guiding her through the turn. The warmth of his touch burned through the fabric of her dress, his breath stirring the hair near her ear. Now together, he murmured, turning her to face him. As they moved through the pattern again, something shifted. The awkwardness melted away, replaced by a natural harmony of movement. When the final steps brought them face to face, barely inches apart, neither immediately stepped away. You learn quickly, Dakota said, his voice lower than usual. I have a good teacher, Emma replied softly. His gaze dropped briefly to her lips, then back to her eyes, a question in his expression that sent heat flooding through her. For one breathless moment, Emma thought he might close the distance between them. Instead, he stepped back, though his eyes never left hers. Tomorrow will test us both, he said, the words heavy with multiple meanings. We'll face it together, Emma replied, equally weighted with promise. Morning brought a flurry of final preparations. The community transformed by colorful decorations and ceremonial attire. Emma hardly saw Dakota, who was occupied with tribal elders and last-minute discussions about the boundary dispute. The weight of her role in the upcoming negotiations settled heavily on her shoulders. As Emma helped the children prepare their performance, Nakia rushed in, her usual composure visibly shaken. This was found nailed to the meeting lodge door, she said, thrusting a folded paper toward Emma. The anonymous letter was crudely written, but its message unmistakably threatening. Indians and Indian lovers beware. Copper Creek is the new line. Cross it and face consequences. Some problems can be solved with bullets instead of treaties. Emma's blood ran cold. Have you shown this to Dakota? He and the council are discussing it now. Nakia's voice lowered. There is concern for the children's safety during tonight's gathering. Who would do this? Emma asked, though she already suspected the answer. Settlers who want our hunting grounds, Nakia replied grimly. They pressure the officials behind closed doors while sending threats to frighten us into submission. Emma folded the letter, her mind racing. The children's performance should continue. Canceling would show fear. But perhaps we should modify things, keep them closer to the main group. Nakia nodded agreement. I will speak with the mothers. Extra eyes will watch tonight. Throughout the day, the threat cast a shadow over preparations. When Emma finally encountered Dakota outside the community center, his face was etched with worry beneath its stoic mask. You've heard, he stated rather than asked. Nakia showed me the letter, Emma confirmed. What will you do? Proceed as planned, but with caution, Dakota replied. Several men will patrol the perimeter. The lieutenant has been informed. He seems genuinely concerned. Emma touched his arm briefly. The children should still perform, but I've suggested keeping them closer. Dakota nodded, covering her hand with his own for a moment. Grey Wolf says we must not show fear, but I worry for their safety. For your safety. I'm not afraid, Emma assured him, though it wasn't entirely true. Perhaps you should be. Dakota's voice was somber. Your association with us now endangers you as well. I've made my choice, she said firmly. Something in her tone made him study her face more closely. Why, Emma? Why risk yourself for our cause? The question demanded honesty she hadn't fully acknowledged even to herself. Because what happens to you and your children matters to me. Because this place, these people, she faltered, then continued more quietly. You have become important to me. Dakota's expression softened, his guard lowering. When Maria died, I believed that part of my life was finished. I did not expect. He trailed off, seemingly unable to find the right words. Nor did I, Emma admitted. After John, I never thought. A shout from across the settlement interrupted their conversation. One of the tribal scouts was returning at a gallop, his expression urgent. Dakota immediately moved to meet him, listening intently to his rapid Apache, his face darkening with each word. When he returned to Emma, his expression was grim. Riders were spotted near the northern boundary, armed. The letter riders? Possibly. Or simply settlers hunting on disputed land to provoke a response. Dakota's jaw tightened. Either way, the timing is suspicious. What will you do? I must organize additional patrols. He hesitated. Tonight, after the children perform, they should be taken to the central lodge. You should stay with them. And you? Emma asked, unable to keep concern from her voice. I will be where I am needed. As twilight approached, Emma helped the children dress for their performance, trying to maintain a calm she didn't feel. Through the window, she observed men moving purposefully around the settlement's perimeter, some carrying rifles. Dakota appeared briefly to check on them, his face composed but eyes alert. Stay close to the main gathering, he instructed. If you hear anything unusual, any signal or commotion, take the children immediately to the central lodge. Be careful, Emma said quietly as he turned to leave. He paused, looking back at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. When this is over, he said softly, there are things I wish to say to you, important things. I'll be waiting to hear them, she promised. Their eyes held for a moment longer before he nodded once and departed, leaving Emma with both fear and hope fluttering in her chest. As darkness fell completely, Emma gathered the children and led them toward the ceremonial grounds, hyper-aware of every shadow, every sound in the night around them. The threatening letter and armed riders lurked in her thoughts, but she maintained a reassuring smile for the children's sake. Whatever dangers the night might bring, the path was set. They would face them together, The ceremonial grounds blazed with bonfire light, casting dancing shadows across the gathered faces. Tribal members in traditional dress, government officials looking uncomfortably formal in their suits, and a scattering of invited settlers from neighboring communities. Despite the threatening letter, Grey Wolf had insisted on proceeding with full ceremonial protocol, including inviting local white citizens who have shown friendship. Emma kept the children close as they waited for their performance. Kiona sensed the tension, her young face serious as she helped organize the smaller children. Across the gathering, Emma spotted Dakota in conversation with the army lieutenant, both men scanning the perimeter periodically. The evening began with Grey Wolf's welcome, the elder's dignity commanding respect even from the skeptical officials. Traditional dances followed, the rhythmic drumming and chanting building an almost hypnotic atmosphere. When it came time for the ceremonial partnership dance, Emma's heart quickened as Dakota approached. "Ready?" he asked quietly, offering his hand. Emma nodded, acutely aware of curious glances from both tribal members and officials as they took their positions. The drums began, and Emma focused on remembering the steps they'd practiced. Dakota's hand at her waist guided her confidently through the turns, their movements flowing together with surprising naturalness. "You dance well for a beginner," he murmured, a hint of warmth breaking through his public persona. "I have motivation to learn quickly," she replied, meeting his eyes briefly. As the dance concluded, Emma caught the senior official watching them with calculated interest, leaning to whisper something to his younger colleague. The observation left her uneasy. The children's performance came next. Emma led them through their carefully prepared songs, traditional Apache melodies intertwined with simple harmonies she'd taught them. Kiona performed a solo verse in her clear, young voice, the pure sound rising into the night air. Even the officials appeared moved, exchanging impressed glances. For the finale, Emma had composed a new song, drawing inspiration from both Apache rhythms and Western musical structures. A piece that spoke of two cultures finding harmony without either losing its essential character. As she played the final notes on a small portable organ borrowed from the community center, spontaneous applause erupted from the audience. The senior official approached afterward, his earlier condescension tempered with grudging respect. "Quite remarkable what you've accomplished with these children, Miss Carson." "They've accomplished it themselves," Emma corrected gently. "I merely provided guidance." "Indeed," his gaze sharpened. "I understand you're the widow of Dr. John Carson?" "I am." "Your husband's service at Fort Whipple is well remembered," he said, his tone suggesting this connection surprised him. His work with local tribes was unconventional but effective. "John believed in respecting all healing traditions," Emma replied. "As I do." The official studied her with new calculation. "Perhaps we might speak privately before tomorrow's boundary discussions? Your perspective could be valuable." Emma recognized the implied suggestion that she might be used to influence the tribe. "I believe all perspectives are best shared openly at the formal meeting. Don't you?" His smile tightened. "As you wish." As he walked away, Dakota appeared at her side. "What did he want?" "To separate me from the tribal position," Emma explained. "He won't succeed." Dakota's expression was complex, gratitude mingled with concern. "These men do not forget perceived disloyalty." "I'm not being disloyal to my country by supporting justice," Emma replied firmly. Their conversation was interrupted by the lieutenant, who approached with purposeful strides. "Mr. Many Horses, Miss Carson," he greeted them, his voice low. "I should inform you that several unauthorized individuals have been observed at the reservation borders. My men are monitoring the situation." "Armed?" Dakota asked sharply. "Yes," the lieutenant confirmed. "I've suggested to the officials that we conclude tonight's gathering early, but they seem reluctant to acknowledge any threat." Emma glanced toward the children, now enjoying refreshments under Nakia's watchful eye. "Should we move the children inside now?" The lieutenant hesitated. "Nothing is imminent, but caution seems advisable." Dakota nodded. "I will speak with the council. The ceremonial portion is complete," We can conclude the social gathering naturally without causing alarm. As the lieutenant departed, Dakota turned to Emma. Stay with the children. I will find you once I've organized the men. Emma caught his arm before he could leave. Dakota, be careful. He covered her hand with his own. Always. The gathering began dispersing gradually, families returning to their homes while tribal warriors took up discreet positions around the settlement. Emma led the children to the community center, organizing quiet games to distract them from the unusual tension in the air. Near midnight, as the youngest children dozed on improvised pallets, Emma sat at the piano, softly working on the melody that had been forming in her mind throughout the evening, a completion of Maria's unfinished composition. The music flowed from her fingers, a bridge between past and present, between loss and newfound hope. She was so absorbed that she didn't immediately notice Dakota standing in the doorway, watching her with an expression that made her heart skip. That's her song, he said quietly, approaching the piano. But different. I hope you don't mind, Emma replied. It felt unfinished, like it was waiting for its ending. Play it again, he requested, sitting beside her on the bench. As Emma played, adding the harmonies and resolution she'd composed, Dakota closed his eyes, listening intently. When the final notes faded, he opened them again, a shimmer of moisture visible in the lamplight. Tomorrow will bring conflict, he said softly. But tonight, you have given her song its voice again. In that moment, with the children sleeping peacefully nearby and tomorrow's confrontation still hours away, something crystallized between them. A recognition that whatever came next, something precious and unexpected had already been found. Morning arrived with tense anticipation hanging over the reservation. The official treaty discussions were scheduled for 10 o'clock in the council lodge, a circular structure large enough to accommodate the tribal elders, government officials, and key witnesses. Emma dressed carefully in her most formal attire, a navy blue dress with modest lace at the collar, her hair neatly pinned up. The silver locket containing John's photograph hung visibly at her throat, a deliberate choice. Dakota met her outside the lodge, similarly formal in a clean white shirt and dark vest over traditional leggings. The combination effectively bridged his dual roles as tribal leader and government liaison. No further incidents overnight, he informed her quietly. But the lieutenant reports the riders remain nearby, watching. Inside, the lodge had been arranged with the officials seated at a table facing the tribal council. Documents and maps covered the wooden surface. Gray Wolf occupied the central position for the tribe, with Dakota beside him as both translator and negotiator. Emma was directed to a chair slightly behind them. The senior official opened proceedings with practiced formality, laying out the government's position regarding the mapping correction that would redraw the boundary at Copper Creek. His presentation was measured, seemingly reasonable, citing survey markers and geographical features. Only someone familiar with the territory would recognize the significant land grab disguised as technical adjustment. When he finished, Gray Wolf spoke through Dakota, his dignified words recounting the original treaty signing, emphasizing the sacred nature of the disputed lands, and firmly asserting the boundary had always been Willow Creek. The officials exchanged glances, clearly having anticipated this position. The senior official produced a newer map. We understand your perspective, he said with rehearsed sympathy, but modern surveying techniques have identified the discrepancy. The government is prepared to offer compensation for any inconvenience. This is not about compensation, Dakota replied, his controlled tone belying the anger Emma could sense beneath it. These are ancestral lands, recognized by treaty. The original document clearly states Shadow Water Creek as the boundary. Shadow Water? The official frowned. That creek isn't on any official maps. Because your maps renamed it, Dakota explained. In our language, it has always been Shadow Water, what your people call Willow Creek. The official dismissed this with a wave. Native place names are interesting historical footnotes, but legal boundaries must use officially recognized terminology. Emma saw Dakota's jaw tighten, his patience clearly fraying. Before he could respond, she leaned forward. May I speak? Gray Wolf nodded encouragement while the officials regarded her with surprise, clearly having expected her to remain silent. "Gentlemen," Emma began, "I believe there's documentation that can clarify this matter." She withdrew a folded paper from her pocket. John's personal letter describing his time with the tribe, which specifically mentioned Shadow Water Creek as the northern boundary. "My late husband, Dr. John Carson, served at Fort Whipple and treated this community during the fever epidemic 7 years ago. His official reports and personal correspondence consistently reference Shadow Water and Willow Creek as the same waterway." The lieutenant leaned forward with interest. Dr. Carson's medical maps from that period would be in military records. They were quite detailed for tracking the spread of disease. A subtle shift occurred in the room, the introduction of independent military documentation potentially supporting the tribal claim changed the dynamic. The officials conferred in low voices. The senior official cleared his throat. While Dr. Carson was undoubtedly dedicated, military medical records aren't boundary surveys. "Perhaps not," Emma agreed, "but they do establish consistent identification of the creek in question by both its traditional and English names, supporting the tribe's position that the treaty boundary referred to what is now called Willow Creek." The discussion intensified. The youngest official, who had remained mostly silent, suddenly interjected. "There's another matter to consider. Several prominent ranchers have already invested in developments within the disputed territory, based on assurances the boundary adjustment would proceed." The senior official shot him a warning glance, but the damage was done. The true motivation behind the correction stood revealed. Not geographical accuracy, but commercial interests. Gray Wolf spoke rapidly in Apache. Dakota translated, his voice gaining strength. "If these ranchers have built on tribal land before any official boundary change, they have acted illegally and in bad faith." The lieutenant frowned. "Is this true? Have private citizens been permitted to develop lands still under dispute?" The uncomfortable shifting of the officials provided answer enough. A commotion outside interrupted the increasingly heated exchange. The door burst open, and a tribal warrior entered, speaking urgently to Dakota. His expression darkened as he turned to the room. "Armed men have crossed onto tribal lands at Copper Creek. They are placing markers and claim stakes." The lieutenant rose immediately. "This is unacceptable. No private citizens have authority to mark boundaries." The senior official appeared genuinely startled. "We didn't authorize this." "But they knew your intentions," Dakota said coldly. "Just as they knew about this meeting." Gray Wolf spoke, his weathered face grave. Dakota translated, "The elder asks if you come to negotiate in good faith while sending others to take by force." The accusation hung in the air, impossible to dismiss entirely. The lieutenant addressed the officials. "Gentlemen, if unauthorized individuals are attempting to enforce a boundary change that hasn't been legally approved, I am obligated to intervene." The senior official, his position rapidly deteriorating, attempted to regain control. "We'll need to suspend these discussions pending investigation of these unfortunate developments." "No," Emma interjected firmly. "These discussions will continue, and a treaty clarification will be signed today, confirming Willow Creek as the boundary, as originally intended." All eyes turned to her, surprised by the authority in her voice. "And why would we do that, Miss Carson?" the senior official asked with forced politeness. "Because," Emma said clearly, "the alternative is a full report to the Indian Affairs Commissioner and Army Command detailing how officials collaborated with private interests to seize treaty lands while armed civilians attempted enforcement, all documented by multiple witnesses, including military personnel. The implications were unmistakable. Whatever their original intentions, the officials now faced potential scandal if they proceeded." The lieutenant nodded almost imperceptibly, his stance making clear which version of events his report would support. After a tense silence, the senior official sighed. "Perhaps, in light of the ambiguities in the surveys, maintaining the traditional boundary would be most appropriate while we conduct a more thorough review." It wasn't complete victory, but it was enough. Gray Wolf nodded to Dakota, who began preparing the document that would protect their lands, at least for now. As the treaty clarification was drafted, Emma caught Takota's gaze across the room. In his eyes she saw not just gratitude but something deeper, more personal. A promise their conversation from the previous night would indeed be continued. The days following the treaty clarification brought a cautious sense of victory to the reservation. The armed settlers had been escorted away by the lieutenant's men. The officials had departed with promises of further consultation. And tribal life began returning to normal. Emma found herself drawn into the community's quiet celebrations, accepting their gratitude with humble acknowledgement. "You fought like Apache," Grey Wolf told her with twinkling eyes, "with clever words instead of arrows, but just as deadly." Takota was occupied with reinforcing the tribe's position, sending formal documentation to various government offices, arranging for tribal warriors to patrol the disputed boundaries, and meeting with friendly settlers to maintain good relations. Yet despite his busy schedule, he found moments to seek Emma out, their conversations growing increasingly personal, though neither had yet given voice to the feelings developing between them. A week after the confrontation, Emma was teaching music to a group of children when a rider arrived from the nearest town, carrying mail for the reservation. Among the letters was one addressed to Emma, its San Francisco postmark immediately catching her attention. The envelope contained a formal letter on expensive stationery. "Dear Miss Carson, it is with great pleasure that I extend to you an invitation to become the headline vocalist at the newly constructed Grand Palace Theater in San Francisco. Your performances in Arizona Territory have been mentioned with considerable admiration by several of our patrons who had the pleasure of hearing you during their travels. The position offers a substantial salary of $100 per month, comfortable accommodations, and the opportunity to perform with our full orchestra. As the West's most elegant new entertainment venue, the Grand Palace provides an unparalleled platform for an artist of your caliber. Please telegraph your response by August 30th. If favorable, we would expect your arrival by mid-September to begin rehearsals for our gala opening. Most sincerely, Harold J. Whitcomb, proprietor." Emma stared at the letter, emotions churning. 3 months ago, such an offer would have seemed a dream come true. Financial security, artistic recognition, a chance to perform music of substance rather than simple songs in frontier saloons and makeshift venues. Now, the thought of leaving the reservation, leaving Takota and the children, created an ache in her chest she hadn't anticipated. She tucked the letter away, needing time to think before mentioning it to anyone. But secrets were nearly impossible in the close community. By evening, Nakia had somehow learned of it. "So you will become a famous singer in the big city," she said, sitting beside Emma outside her cabin. "How did you?" "Grey Wolf's grandson works with the mail rider." Nakia shrugged. "News travels." Emma sighed. "I haven't decided anything. But you are considering." "It wasn't a question. I'd be foolish not to," Emma replied honestly. "It's the kind of opportunity singers dream about." Nakia studied her with knowing eyes. "And this is the only dream in your heart now?" Before Emma could respond, Tallulah came running up, flinging herself into Emma's lap with complete trust. "Shima Yaji, father says you should come for dinner. I helped make fry bread." "Did you? Then I definitely must come taste it," Emma replied, pushing aside weightier thoughts to focus on the child's excitement. At Takota's home, the atmosphere was unusually festive. Ahote proudly showed Emma a bow he'd made himself, while Kiona presented her with a beaded bracelet crafted with remarkable skill for a 9-year-old. Even Takota seemed lighter, more open than she'd ever seen him. "The children wish to thank you," he explained as they sat down to eat, "for helping protect our lands." The simple meal became a celebration, with the children recounting their favorite parts of the negotiation drama with gleeful embellishments. Emma laughed at their interpretations, aware of Takota watching her interact with his children, something soft in his expression that made her heart flutter. After the meal, as the children cleared away dishes, Takota touched Emma's arm lightly. "Walk with me." They strolled through the quiet settlement in the gentle evening light, stopping at a small rise overlooking the valley. The silence between them was comfortable yet charged with unspoken thoughts. "Nakia tells me you received news today," he finally said, his tone carefully neutral. Emma nodded, unsurprised he'd heard. An offer to sing in San Francisco. A good opportunity, Dakota observed, though something in his voice tightened. Yes. When would you leave? The question hung between them, weighted with implications. They want me there by mid-September, Emma replied softly. If I accept. Dakota nodded once, his profile stoic against the sunset. You should consider it carefully. Such chances rarely come twice. His apparent acceptance stung more than Emma expected. Is that what you think I should do? Leave. Dakota turned to her then, conflict evident in his eyes. What I think is not important. Your path is yours to choose. It is important to me, Emma insisted. He looked away. I have no right to ask you to stay. But if you did ask? Emma pressed, her heart pounding. Dakota's jaw tightened. You belong in your world, Emma. Stages, audiences, cities. Not a dusty reservation with uncertain future. That's not an answer, she said softly. He remained silent, the struggle plain on his face, wanting to speak but holding back. Later that night, as Emma lay awake considering her options, a soft knock came at her door. Expecting Nakia, she was startled to find Kiona standing there, eyes wide with distress. Father is packing your things, the girl blurted. What? Emma frowned in confusion. He told Ahote you were leaving to be a famous singer, and we should be happy for you. Kiona's voice trembled. He's putting your music in a box. Please don't go, Shima Yaji. Emma's heart sank. Dakota had made the decision for her, assuming she would choose the opportunity in San Francisco. Worse, he was preparing the children for her departure, perhaps trying to protect them from another painful loss by creating distance before she left. The realization crystallized her own feelings with sudden clarity. The question wasn't whether the San Francisco offer was good. The question was what she truly wanted, and the answer was here in this community with these children, with Dakota. But his actions suggested he had already accepted her departure, perhaps even believed it best for everyone. The complication wasn't just the choice between two paths, but convincing Dakota that staying wasn't sacrificing her dreams. It was choosing a different, equally valuable one. Emma knelt to Kiona's eye level, hands gently gripping the girl's shoulders. Listen to me carefully. I need you to go home and tell your father I'm coming to speak with him. Can you do that? Kiona nodded, hope flickering in her dark eyes. Are you staying? Go now, Emma urged softly. Tell him I'm coming. After Kiona departed, Emma collected her thoughts, knowing this conversation would define her future. The path had never been clearer, though convincing the proud, protective man of her genuine choice might prove challenging. She found Dakota in his home, a wooden crate half filled with her sheet music before him. The children had been sent to Nakia's, leaving them alone with the weight of unspoken words between them. You're packing my belongings, Emma said simply. Dakota didn't look up. You will need your music in San Francisco. I don't recall asking for your help, or saying I was going. His hands stilled, but he kept his gaze fixed on the crate. It is a great opportunity. Yes, Emma agreed, stepping closer. But not all opportunities should be taken. This one should. His voice carried forced conviction. You are a gifted musician. You deserve proper recognition, not just singing children to sleep on a reservation that struggles to survive. And what if that's exactly what I want? Emma asked softly. What if singing children to sleep brings me more joy than any grand theater could offer? Dakota finally looked up, conflict plain in his eyes. You say that now, but later you would regret. Don't tell me what I would regret, Emma interrupted gently. I've had 2 years of wandering since John died. 2 years of stages and audiences and empty rooms afterward. I know that life. She moved closer still, within arm's reach. What I found here, what you and the children have given me, is something I thought was lost forever. And what is that? Dakota asked, his voice barely audible. Home, Emma said simply. Purpose. Connection. She paused, gathering courage. Love. The word hung between them, impossible to retract or ignore. Dakota stood slowly, his expression guarded yet vulnerable in a way she'd never seen. "Emma, I'm not leaving," she stated firmly, "unless you truly want me gone." "Want?" A flash of raw emotion crossed his face. "What I want ceased to matter when Maria died. What matters is doing what is right for my children, my people." "And you believe sending me away is right?" "I believe," he said carefully, "that holding you here when a better life awaits would be selfish." Emma closed the remaining distance between them. "Then be selfish, Dakota. For once, tell me what you want, not what you think is proper or right or sensible." Something broke in his careful composure. "What I want," he said, voice rough with emotion, "is to never hear you sing for anyone but us again, to wake knowing you are near, to see my children smile the way they do when you enter a room." His hand rose hesitantly to touch her cheek. "What I want is you, Emma. Here. But I have no right." "You have every right," she whispered, covering his hand with hers, "if you're brave enough to claim it." For a moment, he remained perfectly still, as if fearing any movement might shatter this fragile possibility between them. Then slowly, with deliberate intent, he lowered his face to hers. Their first kiss held the tentative wonder of rediscovery. Two people who had believed certain doors forever closed finding them unexpectedly open. When they parted, Dakota rested his forehead against hers. "Stay," he said simply. "Not for the children. Not for the music. For us." "Yes," Emma replied, the single word containing all the certainty she felt. The following day, Emma sent a politely worded refusal to the San Francisco theater. Walking through the settlement afterward, she encountered Gray Wolf outside the council lodge. The elder was wrapping a beautiful handcrafted wedding blanket, traditionally given to couples beginning their journey together. "Perfect timing," he said with twinkling eyes. "This needs a proper home." Emma smiled, accepting both the gift and its meaning. "I believe it will find one soon." That evening, as she approached Dakota's home for dinner, she paused in the doorway, watching the domestic scene within. Dakota helped Tallulah set the table while Kiona and Ahote prepared vegetables, the family moving in comfortable harmony. When they noticed her, the children's faces brightened with the special joy reserved for someone who belongs. Dakota crossed to her, taking her hand in his as naturally as if they'd been doing it for years. "Welcome home," he said softly. The future held many uncertainties. There would be challenges for an Apache warrior and a white singer building a life together. The outside world would not always understand or approve. But as Emma stepped fully into the warm circle of light, surrounded by the family she had unexpectedly found, she knew with absolute clarity that her choice was right. The blazing Arizona sun that had cast long shadows across the dusty valley when she first arrived now bathed the same landscape in golden promise. What had begun with strict boundaries, "You're here only to sing my children to sleep, nothing more," had transformed into something neither could have foreseen. A love that bridged cultures, healed old wounds, and created a new harmony from two separate melodies.